Hello, my little naughties. Welcome to Goya Tales. Today, I'm going to tell you a folktale. You all know what a folktale is. A folktale is something which is not from a storybook, right? So we have so many stories written as books today. But folktale is part of a culture and that has been passed down generation after generation orally, just by word of mouth. Like, say, how our grandparents tell us stories, so their grandparents might have told them, and their grandparents might have told them. So like this, so many generations, as part of the culture, they share some stories. Correct? So those are called folk tales, and folk tales are available in every country. Every culture has a different folk tale. So today we are going to listen to a folk tale from Africa. Okay, the huge continent of Africa, and it's also very famous for all the different forests and jungles. No, there are so many forests and deserts in Africa. So this folktale is it's completely about birds. You all like birds? You all like listening to stories about birds? Correct? So this folktale is about birds, and when we say birds, how many birds can you name? Tell me, how many birds do you know? You know what? Not only you, like even me and most of us, almost all of us, we know we actually don't know more than half the variety of birds that exist in this world. There are so many kinds of birds in this world. It's true, really. So after the story, if you have time, just go and research about birds. Okay, you learn about birds. There are so many, unique characteristics that is there about birds, and also there are so many varieties and species, and there are some native birds also. Like some birds you will find only in India, some you will find only in Africa, like that. So there are different regional birds also. Alright, so this story is called King of the Birds. King of the Birds? Why do birds need a king? As I said, birds are very different, right? So there are so many varieties of birds. There are tiny birds, there are huge birds, large and heavy birds. But all of them, if you talk about a special characteristic, what makes a bird very distinct? So one thing is their beaks, right? So some might have a very tiny beak, some might have a very sharp and long beak, some might have a very, huge and a flat beak. Whatever it is, all the birds have some kind of beak. So the beak is very unique to birds. And also, birds, they build nests and they lay eggs in it. Correct? So how are baby birds born? From eggs. No? And another important characteristic of birds is their feathers. Their feathers and wings, they not only protect the birds from the harsh weather or from somebody who is attacking them. It not only that, it plays a very important role in their flight management. So birds fly, no? So the feathers and the wings are the actual ones that help the birds to fly. So these are some very important characteristics of birds. Now coming to the story, which is called The King of the Birds, it is from South Africa. Okay, it's a folk tale from South Africa, and some people, they have now started putting all these folk tales into books so that many people read it. So they do that under the initiative called African Storybook Initiative. So nice, no? So coming to the story. Okay, one day in the middle of the African forest, all the birds, they all gathered to discuss about something. They wanted to choose a king, because they did not have a king for their own. We all know that the animals have a king, and that is nothing but the lion, correct? So, lion is the king of the jungle. And even we humans, we people have kings, like not today. We used to have kings, but now we have leaders and rulers, correct? So, a king or a leader is very, very important because everybody else will follow the king only, the leader, saying, how we should do something, how we should live, what should we do. So all these rules are set by the king. So the birds also, they wanted to have a king of their own. So they all decided, come on, we don't have a king yet, let's all discuss together and choose a king. And there are many birds, right? They all have different specialities. And so they all started talking about themselves. The eagle, for example, it's so mighty and strong, no? It's a powerful bird. So the eagle said, I am so mighty, right? So I deserve to be the king. And a few other birds came and said, I have this, I have that. So they all started, okay, let's compare. Let's discuss what the plus points are and what the minus points are. So when they started discussing, they said, some people said, I agree, the eagle is very strong and it's kingly, it's majestic. So let's choose the eagle as the king. But then some birds said, no, eagle does not have a crown, and even the eagle's voice is not so great. It's not so loud and clear. It's a very kind of a sad sound. So they said, okay, then why not ostrich? Because ostrich is so huge. It's the largest bird, and it also roars like a lion. It has a majestic voice. So let's choose ostrich. And then some birds said, oh, come on, no way. Because we need a king for the birds, and birds should fly. Ostrich cannot fly much. So how can we make the ostrich as the king? And then they discussed, oh yes, that's a point. And then the peacock came. When the peacock came, we all know, no, peacock is so beautiful, its feathers are so beautiful. So it fanned its tail, it opened up its feathers and said, come on, look, I am the most beautiful bird. So I deserve to be the king. I also have a crown-like thing on my head. And then the owl came. He said, oh peacock, stop it. You're just too proud of yourself. Look at me. See, I have such big eyes. A king should be very watchful, correct? The king should carefully watch what's going on around, if somebody is doing a mistake, if everything is happening all right. So a king must be so watchful. And with such big eyes, who else can be the king? It should be me, the owl said. And people said, oh owl, come on. You just go to sleep when the sun rises. And that's not the right thing to do. So how can you be the king? And they kept arguing and arguing. Some other birds also came forward and said, no, I have this, I have that. So they were not going any far. So they were just arguing with each other. So then they decided, okay, so let's do a fair choice. Let's have a competition and then decide based on who is winning the competition. Right? Who wins will be the king. And they all agreed, yes, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. Let's have a competition. And what is the competition? It's for the birds. So obviously it's a flying competition. So they all decided we will have a competition and who flies the highest will be our king. So the competition began and all the birds, they started flying. All the little birds, the tiny birds, they flew for some time and they could not, withstand. They couldn't fly higher than that. So they all returned and they came back to the ground. So most of the birds, they came back, but three birds, they kept going higher and higher. So the first was the goose. The goose, it flew over the mountains. It flew for one whole day. But past that, it could not fly. It couldn't fly any higher, so it returned and came back to the ground. Next was the eagle. The eagle was flying for 2 days, high above the mountains, into the sky. But even then, after that, it was not able to fly higher. So the eagle also returned and came back to the ground. The last was the vulture. The vulture, it soared high into the sky, so high, and it did not come back. It was continuously flying for 3 days. It almost reached the sun. It flew so high and it just looked around. It saw that it was the only bird flying, up high in the sky. So the vulture felt happy and proud. It said, "Oh, nobody else is there. I am the highest, so I am the king." When the vulture announced this, you know what happened? Suddenly, a tiny sound came from under the vulture's wings. It was a tiny little bird, the Nekkidy bird. Okay, it's found in Africa. It's also called the Nekkidy bird. Okay, it's a very, very small and tiny bird like our sparrow. Correct? Sparrow is a small bird, no? So like that, the Nekkidy is also a very small bird. It was holding on to the mighty wings of the vulture. The vulture has such huge wings, no? Such huge and very heavy wings. The Nekkidy bird was holding on to the vulture's wings and it flew up so high along with the vulture. Because the tiny bird, it could not fly so high on its own. No, it cannot fly so high. But it made a plan. It tricked the vulture and it flew under its wings. It said, "Ting, ting, 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 ting. You are not the king." So the Nekkidy bird, it flew a little bit higher than the vulture and said, "See, I am higher than you. I am the king." So smart, no? But then the vulture got angry. It said, "What? This is not done. You cannot do this." And the vulture, it flew a little bit more higher. And then it said, "You cannot beat me. See, I am the highest and I am the king." But the Nekkidy bird, it was, holding on to the vulture's wings a little bit, and then it flew a little higher than the vulture and said, "Ding, ding, ding, ding. No, I am the highest. I am the king." The vulture felt so angry, but it was also very exhausted because it has been flying high for 3 days. So the vulture said, "Oh, whatever it is, I am just going back to the ground." And the Nekkidy bird also, it again, caught hold of the vulture's wings and started flying down. So these birds, when they were coming down, the other birds, they saw, "Oh, what is this?" They were, from the ground, they were noticing all that happened up in the sky, and they all got so furious. "What is this? The Nekkidy bird cannot do this. This is not fair. Okay, it's a trick. This is not fair." And they all were waiting for them to come back. They were so furious that they wanted to just pluck out all the feathers from the Nekkidy bird. They were all so angry. So when they were coming down, when the vulture and the Nekkidy were coming down, the tiny little bird, it noticed that everybody was so angry with it. And it knew that if at all they get caught of him, that is gone. So the bird decided, no, we should not get caught. So as soon as it was approaching the ground, it spotted an empty snake hole. Okay, a snake hole, but it was empty. There was no snake in it. So it spotted that hole and it straight away went inside the hole. Since it was a very small and tiny bird, it went inside the hole easily. But other larger birds, they cannot get into the hole. No? So it was safe for that moment. So the Nekkidy bird, it acted smart and it went inside the hole. And it was hiding inside. The other birds, they got so restless and so angry. They thought, "Oh, this is not done. It cannot escape. The bird cannot escape." So they decided, okay, let's think what to do. There is no point in all of us sitting just, out of this hole, because we cannot go inside, and that bird also, it has to come out. It's not going to come out now. So let's take turns. Okay, we'll take turns and we will watch the hole carefully. Whenever he's coming out, we will catch hold of him. And the owl was telling no that it has such big eyes, so it can be very watchful. So they all nominated the owl. Okay, so let the owl sit here and watch the hole. And owl, just listen. All of us, we are going out now. So some birds they went to take rest, some birds they went to hunt for their prey. Okay, so they all flew away. But the owl was responsible now to watch that little bird and catch hold of him if at all he comes out. Right? So the owl was sitting in front of the hole and he was watching it. But slowly what happened? The sun was rising and it was so warm and nice. And the owl slowly it drifted off to sleep. It was so nice and warm that owl, slowly closed its eyes and went off to sleep. The tiny little bird was noticing this from inside the hole, and it also saw that there were no birds around the hole. No other birds were there. So it said, I cannot miss this opportunity. And it flew just in time. It got the opportunity, it came outside and it flew away into the forest. It disappeared into the forest. So all the other birds, some birds, they also noticed that the little bird was flying away. They all got so angry. They said, hey, what is this? First the bird, it tricked the vulture, because the vulture is such a huge bird. It's a heavy bird with heavy wings. And the Nekkidy bird is a very, very small bird. It's like a sparrow. So the bird, that easily it tricked the vulture and it got under his wings and flew up so high. And now he came down and, owl, what is this? You just went off to sleep and you let him escape. How can you do this? The owl got so embarrassed. It felt so ashamed of itself. So the owl said, oh no, this is so embarrassing and I'm so ashamed of myself. And the owl flew into its treetop house. From that day, the owl comes out only in the night. It hunts in the night, it wakes up in the night. But during the day, the owl does not come out and show its face in front of everybody. It just hides into its treetop house and sleeps all day. Correct? And what about the birds? Did they find the king? No. They had so many arguments, they had so much of discussion, they also had a competition. But what happened? It ended up in a twist. So, they also could not find out who the king of the birds was. Right? So, these are some very, very interesting facts about birds. As I said at the beginning of the video, there are so many distinct characteristics and there are so many varieties of birds as well. We all know only a handful of birds. So if you get time, just try to learn about and know more about birds. Okay, naughties? This was such a cute tale. I'm sure this must be, there are similar stories about birds in different cultures, in different countries, and they might be a little different because I told you, right? So in regional level, there are different regional birds also. So some birds you might find only in one particular country or even one part of the country. So the stories might be a little different with, different bird names or whatever. But it's a very fun story. Correct? Isn't it? So, you all, if you have time, just find out more about birds. And I will come back next week with another beautiful story. Alright? Bye-bye.